about the last 20 or so minutes of getting into monopolistic competition, so we can start, filling in our matrix of different industrial structures. Wednesday, the production function paper is due. Individual paper, remember, it's quite different from the demand analysis. It's not as much of a research paper. What I'm looking for is something you have experience with and can break down into 3 steps and detail those steps using the type of metrics and concepts that we've used in class, capital labor or different types of labor. It can be a service, it could be an accounting firm, making a loan. That's a great process that has several steps. Who's involved in each step, different types of labor, or software, of course, counts as capital. Okay, so something you have knowledge of that you can break down, like we did the AB and Bev process into 3 fairly distinct steps. Identify the production function used at each step. And just a word of warning there, don't be overly swayed by exactly how, say it's somewhere that you worked, and this is how they did it. Just because that's how they did it, don't take that to mean it's like Leoniev. That's how it has to be done. I'm certainly asking you to think more broadly. Gee, we could have used software for that. Maybe it was something that was done by hand. I want you to consider substitutability and the characteristics of the production functions that we've covered to identify not just this is how we did it at my firm. That's interesting, but I do ask you to make suggestions for improvement, which are based on a broader look at the way things could have been done. Remember we said there's a danger in just looking at one. If we had only seen the rice planting in India, we might think that's just an all-labor function. But then we saw the machine plant 30,000 seedlings. Was it per minute or was it per hour? Whatever it was mind-boggling. So think broadly. That's why I want it to be something that you're pretty familiar with. If you have any questions, I'm out all day. Today would be the better day to come see me. Tomorrow I'm in and out, but any questions at all, just come in. So, certainly a reference is welcome, but I do not want it to be you look up something online, how to make X, and that's your report. I want it to be something that you can think through yourself from having done it or seen it or being involved in it. Okay? And Friday, we have just another quick team write-up on the video industry. And I have just about all of them. I know a few of you said you tried to send it or print it when the power went out. I do, when you have these team things, and I think the one on Friday may be the last one, but I do like for it to be handed in section 2 because that's who I meet with first, just as we discuss it. And I just don't like I don't like to even think that, somebody sent their teammate in here some of the ideas and put them in there, but that's happened in the past, so I just like to have them for the first section, okay? So print them out at home before the power goes out. Okay, that's what I should have said. All right. Okay, pull out your notes because we are ready to go. I am starting to get questions about the exam. Let me just say I will post an exam from past years, and as a practice, it is open book, open note. Don't be fooled. That doesn't make it easier. In some cases, I think it makes it harder because there can be a tendency to think, oh, well, I can just look everything up. But you won't have time to look everything up. So, annotate your notes in your book. Little sticky notes, things, particular formulas or concepts that we've gone over. Okay, so I make it available to you because the world to me is open book. I think it's silly to test people on a closed book basis, memorize formulas or something. I do encourage summary sheets of formulas, and I'll go over a few of those toward the end. I encourage you to fill in the matrix that we're working on now of the different characteristics of the structures. Just have that so you have a nice, easy sheet you can look at, Why make it hard on yourself looking things up? Plus, you really will learn a lot by producing your summary sheets. So those are my suggestions. let's see. I'm gonna start in the middle row there. I'm looking at Aman, boy, he is ready to tell us. Don't take anything for granted. Don't assume that we know anything. Tell us about the very beginning of Xerox. When was it started? What was it? Just the beginning. Don't go through the whole story for us right now. Let's just get started.
So I don't know the year and all, but yeah, it was started in 1950s, right?
59, okay.
And it's I just don't remember it right now.
Just how did it get started? And so just give us the very brief, beginnings.
So it started out with the small. They started out with the small copy machine makers, and they then diversified into a service copy service.
Just
company.
get us started. Don't go forward. We're just looking at the beginning. Ashley, you want to pick up from there? So, entrepreneur in his garage, right?
Yep.
I just remember the broad idea. They started as a copy machine, and then they were the pioneers for laser printer.
You're going forward. I just want the beginning. Sprinty, what can you tell us? Let's start with, this guy has an idea. He does a demand estimate. How many do you think he's going to sell? A few thousand. How many does he sell? 600,000 is the original product. Okay? So, what we want to identify here is, how did this company that became one of the dominant firms in America for almost 40 years, how did they get there? They have to start somewhere. Every firm starts somewhere. So we're after their starting point, right? Guy in the garage, sound familiar? Does every successful company have to start in somebody's garage? Can't they go to the living room? The man cave or something. So started in the garage, has an idea, sounds like a classic story, right? Take it from there. Take us forward a little bit, Matt.
So they were the sole seller of the time. For the photocopiers, there weren't any other players in the market.
Okay, so sole seller. We could also call that first in, right? How do you become the first in? You invented, right? Innovation, R&D. Okay, so how do you get to be the first in? Great. And from there, what can you now start doing? We're trying to build this into a business. Okay, we've got proof of concept. I thought I might sell a few thousand. Wow, people really like this. What's going to help me now solidify my position as a company?
Diversify your product line.
Not yet. I got to solidify this one first. I just have one goal.
Kind of like create a barrier to entry type of technology.
Good. You got to get started on some barriers, okay? You're first in. You see people want it. You want to make a profit on this thing. And you don't want entry to just suddenly, take it away from you. Okay, so barriers. All right, key barriers, certainly for any technological innovation, patent. Good. What else, Scott?
Develop ways to produce it at a low cost.
Good. You certainly want to have a cost structure that could itself become a barrier. Okay? Remember in the beginning, I know you all are used to personal printers and small scale copiers. These things started out massive. Yeah, these were not desktop. Right?
Built-out matrix printer,
Oh, yeah, exactly. And they were sold to huge companies and the government. Okay? These were anywhere from $100,000 to $500,000 machines back in the day. So what can you see as a barrier? Let's build on what Scott said. A price, but where does that come from? Douglas?
I was just going to say, because it was the first product in the industry, it was a price setter.
Yes, was a price setter, and so able to make a good margin. But to retain that power, I've got to build up some barriers here, and what else on my cost structure?
There were a few substitutes. There were really no other options. So if you wanted to have this kind of technology, this was your go-to.
Right? So we've got all those characteristics that we said, help someone be a monopoly, but now I'm managing that. I want to retain it. I want to retain my position as the sole provider. I already know.
Customer satisfaction?
Good. Customer satisfaction. How is that a barrier?
Yeah, because it takes time to get customers that can be loyal to your brand.
Good. And why would they be loyal?
Because
John.
there's
Good positive brand recognition. They think of your company as the top dog.
Okay, good. Hold on to that one. Let's get to that because that can be very powerful as a barrier. But let's just develop more about this customer. So, first of all, why is that a barrier? But then how did Xerox really amplify that? Caitlin?
They were listening to what their customers wanted and responding in their products. They were coming up with features that met needs.
Okay, good. And who was listening? Did they call up the chairman and say, I really want to be able to staple? What? How did they actually develop a systematic way of being able to do that, Adam?
Well, Xerox was known for having the best sales force probably in the world at that time. They were regional specific, where they were one of the first people to do that, so they knew every company in their territory. They talked to them frequently. These people were great at keeping their customers.
Exactly.
So if you love your salesman for Xerox printers, you're not going to go to Canon. You're going to stay with Xerox.
Okay, so it was a very structured communication system. And the way they had the sales force allocated by region, so you got to know everyone in that region and bring the information back. Nowadays, of course, there's a great software platform. I know there are others like it. Anybody ever worked with Salesforce? With every customer contact you have, you enter that in there. Anyone in your company can see it. What's the positive, negative? What was the last touch we had with them, et cetera, and how to progress companies through the sales process, but also, what are they saying? So in those days, you didn't have that kind of thing, but it was all brought back to the design team. Here's what the customers, and again, just the personal contact. You knew them. And that can be a very powerful barrier. Those salespeople, believe me, those were their customers. Yeah, and that was very valuable, lucrative to you. So you were going to serve those customers well. And they structured it to make it advantageous. Okay, so we've got some good barriers going here. Now let's go to John's point. So now we've started, and we are selling a whole lot of them. We're bringing our cost under control so we can have a nice profit margin. That's a key too for a new company. It's great to sell a lot. That doesn't always guarantee a profit. Remember, we've talked about the case of the unprofitable monopoly, generally driven by inadequate demand. Okay, or that another way to put that is your cost structure is too high. You've got to maybe develop economies of scale and inadequate demand to get there. Okay, but we've got it. And so now, what do we have that we can start using as another strong barrier?
Your brand recognition. If other competitors try to enter the market, they have to overcome the fact that people already want your product.
Right. I like to say, put yourself in the position of the purchasing manager at a big company. And you get to the point that you realize you need a printer or a copier. And in comes the Xerox rep for your area and makes a presentation, here's what we can give you, here's what we'll do, blah, blah, blah. And then in comes Joe Schmo, who says they have a comparable product at a lower price. Maybe 10, 15% cheaper, because Joe Schmo's trying to break in, right? They're going to have to do something to get in. And so Nathan's making the decision here about which one of these $500,000 pieces of equipment to buy that everybody in the company is going to use. What's going to be going through your mind?
Is the quality worth the premium that you're going to pay over that over that higher cost. So if you've had success with a certain Xerox machine, then you're more likely to keep with that and say, why would I change? And then we have technical.
Right, stick with a known winner. And what else, just in terms of career management? So you're a purchasing manager. You're laying out a lot of money for this thing. So on that, you went through sort of on the upside. What about on the other side?
So, as a purchasing manager, you're also responsible for the cost reductions. And so that's where that decision comes in play, that if another player is playing on 15% less, and if I'm making an investment of $500,000, is it worth going to Xerox only for that particular service, or I can try this new player who guarantees the same amount and same career path?
Okay, I think you guys are, I don't want to say being a little naive, but come on. I'm laying out $500,000. What about my neck? Jude?
If it was me, it would just be risky to take that on. And then you'll be known as the person who made a terrible purchase.
Exactly.
Saved 10%.
Exactly. You know, if it worked out and you saved the 10%, you're a hero. But what are the odds? Have you ever known a copier that worked for more than a week? Xerox. But if the Xerox breaks down, that's just life. But if the Joe Schmo copier breaks down, you idiot, you didn't, you know, right, you wasted the company money. So, brand, being the I'm going to call it the incumbent, being the known entity, is a very significant barrier, particularly for high-priced stuff. Now look, if it was, you know, paper supplies, we can try it, and doesn't work out, we change our order next time, right? Particularly for big ticket items. This is true not only for products, but for services as well. Can you think of some high price services, Douglas, I'm thinking related to your industry that you've worked in, where it's just not worth it to try to shave 10-15% off a contractor that you may call in?
It depends. It probably depends on the total budget. 10% would be significant.
Right, but what? I mean, what would be some of the biggest cost elements in a big project that you would work on?
Definitely the road infrastructure and the materials cost. But I mean, when it comes to contractors, quality of the contractor is so rare that a lot of times I paid a lot more because it was reliable or cheap.
Exactly. Because you know what you're going to get, even though it's higher price. This is a known. Any of you been involved in like government purchasing on behalf of the government? And I know there's all kinds of rules and things too. But what are some, Ardelia? What can you tell us?
Generally, they go with what is the best in that particular line of brand. Like you see like computers, especially like computer equipment and stuff like that. Because they're always slow to catch up to what the current system is. So when they finally do make a purchase, it is usually top of the line or, you know, the item that gives them specifically what they need.
Okay, and not wanting to take the risk. What else can you add to that?
Yeah, they'll have different parameters like cheapest, or they'll have what they call best value, and they have criteria for the best value, and they have premium. So, like Ardelia said, depending on what their computer systems will do and what kind of information they handle, if it's sensitive, they'll go premium. If it's Joe Schmo's email, you know, maybe the cheapest.
Yeah, there you go. Again, anything high priced, anything critical, you're not gonna pinch pennies over this. Okay, so becoming the established one, the brand that at least people think is the most reliable. It's just that's a tough barrier to break through as the upstart. Okay, what else?
And I would say government's the worst at this because there's always the bureaucracy that this works, so let's stick with it. And we see it with strategic systems, we see it with the PACE system. We stuck with the old, tried and true, as opposed to going something agile or sleek.
Yeah.
Cheap.
And, not just government, face it, most organizations are pretty slow to. Okay. So again, this first in, having the brand behind you, and then you have to earn that brand every day. You have to continue to earn it. You have to be the quality that people expect you to be. So, all right, so here we go. They've got, and through the 60s, Xerox was literally the only one, even into early 70s. And then what started happening? What started happening? Yeah.
Competitors started to enter the market.
Okay, but what? I mean, a direct competitor?
Yeah.
So, okay, sort of.
I was
Scott?
gonna say new hardware was developed.
Right, okay, elaborate a little bit on that. Is it just a new way of doing the same thing, or what was it?
No, so there was other areas that didn't necessarily compete directly with photocopying that other companies got into that Xerox stayed out of, like the network printing.
Okay, okay, good. And Ira?
There's new technologies that were developed. And so, when Xerox tried to enter the new technologies, sometimes it didn't.
Okay, good. So like when laser and, some new technologies, but, let's get to the core of it. What really got to them?
I see other companies, you see the market share. I want to share the market. They want to use the technology of
Xerox.
So they want to buy the technology or buy a pattern of Xerox to make their product.
Okay, there was some of that, but not, I'm trying.
Well, they even said in the article where they strayed into insurance and mutual funds and got away from all those technologies they had developed, and they kind of shelved them to kind of go into that market.
Okay, good. Let's save that for another mistake they made. I'm sort of after what the external world did to them, because they were taken down by both external and internal forces. Vikram.
They were the market leaders for innovations. For instance, they invented laser printing technology, and they had even the new graphical user interface. But they were not able to market those innovations, and that's why other companies